welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello and welcome to another astrology video from me. So today's topic, as I have said, is going to be kind of a rant, basically based on my own observations to do with the Age of Aquarius. So it's one of those videos that is somewhere between astrology, and maybe a little bit of philosophy, in the sense that, again, it's mostly about my perceptions, my ideas based on my observations of patterns that I have spotted in society, patterns of behavior, and so on and so forth. Right, so just to let you know from the beginning, it's more towards a philosophical rant than astrological, information, but it is also going hand in hand with the themes of the Age of Aquarius. I thought I would mention this as an intro. I will also link the videos that I have done before on the Age of Aquarius because they are related to the topic a little bit, but I'm going to be focusing on different themes this time in this video. So I have titled the video The Age of Loneliness because Aquarius goes hand in hand with the theme of loneliness. I think I have mentioned this also in the first video that I did on the Age of Aquarius, that Aquarius in itself is considered to be the most spiritual sign of the zodiac, according to Vedic astrology. And the reason for this, unlike tropical astrology, where Pisces is considered to be the most spiritual sign, is because of the Bhavat Bhavam concept in Vedic astrology, which refers to the fact that Aquarius is the 12th from the 12th sign, and that makes it extra highly spiritual. I know that this may sound like a contradiction at first, especially if you are used to the idea that spirituality and religion go hand in hand, which they absolutely do not, and that's exactly what you will come to see, and we have come to see in recent years, living through the Age of Aquarius. If you look around, I have also dabbled in this topic of religion versus spirituality in multiple videos, especially the one where I talked about archetypes of Ketu. Just in case you're curious to, see those videos as well, I will be linking all the mentioned related videos in the video description if you want to check them out. So what I wanted to say is about the Age of Loneliness. So why is there a loneliness epidemic? Why is there a mental health epidemic? And I have to start with the beginning. I have to admit I haven't made a plan for this video, so bear with. The idea that I got about this topic actually comes from quite a while back. I think it was about like 1 or 2 years ago, and I was watching, every now and then I watch Valuetainment. Every now and then, I haven't watched it in a while. It's more of a, I would say, like a bit macho oriented kind of show. There are parts about it that I liked, parts about it that I didn't like, whatever. But every now and then I would watch their shows. The host of the show, Patrick Bet David, also had a lot of interesting guests on. And in any case, he had a video up, a really short video up a few years ago, where he talked about, I think the topic of the video was something about robotization, and about people asking him if he thinks that robotics are going to change the workforce completely and, lead to mass replacements of humans, especially since he himself runs, I think, several businesses, or at least one that I know of, the YouTube channel. That is, I think the YouTube channel is just, a front. He probably runs other things as well. So in any case, he started out by saying that people ask him this question, and to which he responded that people are becoming more robotic. Have you noticed this? He said, have you noticed that people are starting to act like robots? And I specifically remember this part. I don't remember what the rest of the video was about, but these words especially really stuck in my mind. And it really made me think about the things that I have noticed in, first of all, in my entire life, but especially in living and working in corporate environments. I have worked in corporate environments for, I would say, about, 7 to 8 years total in multiple companies. Yes, I have changed quite a few jobs. And one thing that I have noticed in corporate jobs is that the people that make it to the top, and sometimes not even the people that make it to the top, but the ones who live the longest, have the longest life in a particular job, manage to keep that job the longest, are the ones who are the most robotic. And robotic basically is also another word for grayrocking. And this really leads me to one of the main ideas that I wanted to say through this video, is that we live in a culture that teaches people to enable narcissism and all kinds of, abusive personality types and behaviors. And what I mean by enabling, I'm talking especially about the normalization of this technique called grayrocking, which is turning people into robots. Yeah. And grayrocking, if you're not familiar with it, now, of course, if you want to find out more about it, you can just do a simple search. I know that Dr. Ramani, who speaks a lot about narcissistic abuse, has definitely had a video where she talked about grayrocking. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that she was the first one that I heard the term from. And that, grayrocking is basically learning to be as non-reactive as possible, right? So it's about you learning to not just not react verbally when you are, let's say, baited into an argument, or when someone says something provocative around you, but it also means going to the extent of controlling every little part of your expression, even down to the way that you walk, the way you talk, the way you, even your micro expressions, as in your facial expressions, right? When someone tells you something, to perfect controlling yourself to such an extent that you don't ever even lift an eyebrow or smile or don't smile, basically playing dead, in other words, or doing the robot, as it were. And the reason why people are becoming more like this is because most of the people in power, especially in corporations, but not just, are narcissists, right? And narcissist is kind of like, I use this as a kind of generic term because sometimes it could be much worse things like sociopaths, psychopaths, you name it. And the bottom line is, that's what I got the idea from, actually, and it really hit me the moment when I heard Patrick Bet-David saying this. It hit me that, I worked in companies, in fact, most companies that I worked in, the employees that were the most revered, the most celebrated and successful and praised, were the ones who were the most robotic, like people who literally had no facial expression, almost no facial expression, some of which, and I don't know if you remember this, I had a video a while ago where I talked about how I went through sexual harassment at work. And the guy in question, I talked about, I gave full details there about how this guy was a full-blown I think a psychopath, or at least a psychopathic narcissist, but I think he was literally a psychopath. And he was so good at being deceptive, and using power plays and all this stuff. And that guy was very popular among the work group because people seem to equate lack of emotion with valuable qualities nowadays, which is, well, this whole thing, the whole part that I have talked about up until this point, basically is explained through the dark side of Aquarius. The dark side of Aquarius, which demonizes human emotion to such an extent that we think lack of emotion is some kind of a testimony of competence and superiority and self-control. And more specifically, it's about the dark side of Saturn, because let's not forget, Aquarius has two rulers, Saturn and Rahu, right? So Saturn especially is very emotion phobic. It's all about productivity, and it's all about control, and all about power and hierarchical structures, right? So bottom line is that people, in order to sometimes even survive, let's not forget, in fact, a lot of the times I would say, in order to survive, people have to act like robots. They have to perfect the grayrocking method, right? And the problem is that I think this is seriously a problem on multiple levels. And I'm going to break down why I think it is. First of all, because if you create this normalization of grayrocking, as I have mentioned also in the video where I went through harassment, the guy in question, who was a psychopath, was very good at exploiting other people's expectations, exploiting the fact that in today's world, and in fact, if you open your eyes and you look towards politics, for instance, you will see that the politicians that are the most popular among the electorate are the ones who maybe don't have the best credentials, that maybe don't have the best resume or whatever. Instead, they are the ones who show the least emotions, right? Because people automatically think that, or rather, should I say, they're being brainwashed to think, and have been brainwashed to think systematically over the past, I would say, at least couple of decades, that lack of emotion, lack of expression of any kind is a sign of competence, that it's a sign of self-control and intelligence, when in reality, a lot of these qualities do not point to what people assume that they are. Instead, they point to a total lack of empathy. In other words, psychopathy, right? Because if you were to analyze an average person and compare them to a psychopath, the main difference is that the psychopath doesn't have any conscience. So whereas, a normal, sane person might have a hard time becoming a politician and making decisions that might potentially affect the lives of millions of people, a psychopath, on the other hand, could make a decision to ruin the lives of millions and then literally go for tea and biscuits half an hour later, right? And again, this is the danger of glorifying lack of emotion, glorifying the grayrocking method. I'm not going to name names, but I can tell you at least two people who were in positions of power. I'm talking presidents of countries that were very popular in the past decade or so, maybe even more. And I would say they display high levels of psychopathic traits, and based on their horoscopes, I would say that they are full-blown psychopaths. And people still kind of think generally positively towards them. They think well of them because these people were clever to manipulate. They were clever to, attract others through increasing welfare or increasing healthcare or increasing, giving the underprivileged different advantages so that people could take the bait into voting them. And undercover, underneath this whole thing, they were actually doing all kinds of shady crap that only later started to transpire, and only towards the people who were actually willing to look at the evidence. But again, I'm not going to name names. This is one thing that I wanted to say, all right? So this is the threat of overly glorifying, like I said, the lack of emotion. And it's not just that we glorify lack of emotion, it's also that we simultaneously encourage lack of emotion in other people. Of course, if this becomes the standard of what we admire, then automatically people are going to be encouraged to show less and less emotion, right? And I'm talking about all possible emotions, but perhaps none of them is actually more demonized than anger. And if you look at it, again, think about situations you have been through. I can think about situations I have been through where it's like we live in a world right now where there's kind of like an unspoken arrangement or an unspoken agreement that anger is an unacceptable emotion, and automatically shows that somehow the person displaying it is deranged or out of control, or somehow maybe not even worthy of being listened to, right? Especially when we think about public figures, politicians, and so forth. Just speaking about the topic of anger, actually, let me give you another example that I have seen on YouTube, a discussion between, two relatively famous people that really triggered the hell out of me, especially connected to this topic of showing anger. And it was specifically about Gabor Mate. If you are familiar with him, the psychotherapist, he's quite popular and he's been on a lot of interviews, podcasts, and so forth. He has been on an interview, I think, with, I think his name is Rose something, David Rose, I think. He actually ran for mayor of London, I'm pretty sure, some years ago. I don't remember what his channel is called. Maybe it's actually literally David Rose. But I think he has one of these like really popular YouTube channels, so you can search for him. So in any case, he had an interview with Gabor Mate, and at some point he asked, what is your opinion? He asked Mate, what is your opinion about Jordan Peterson? And Gabor Mate said, he seems very angry, and then paused. And then he said, he seems very angry. He went on to say, he calls the leftists bloody Marxists. And then he goes on about he goes on to praise Christianity. And then Gabor Mate continued by saying, do I need to remind him of how many crimes were committed in the name of Christianity, blah, blah, blah. So in any case, what pissed me off was his response. So this is not about me defending Peterson, because I'm not like his number one fan. I have said this in some of the videos that I have recorded that I kind of respect Peterson, at least because he pushes for freedom of speech at the very least. So there are some things that I respect about him. There are some things that I absolutely don't like about him, like the fact that he speaks against women's rights shamelessly. Anyway, I won't get into that. But this is not about, defending either Peterson or Mate. This is about the principle of it, right? If you have something to say about a person, I mean, the fact that he said he seems very angry, and then paused, and then he said he seems very angry again, and then continued it by giving examples of how he doesn't basically like Peterson, but he didn't expand on what he meant by he seems very angry, because I think if he would have tried to expand on it, people would have caught on to the fact that he's being manipulative, right? Because let's be honest, he seems very angry is not some kind of a logical argument by which you can attack someone, right? I mean, the way that he said it, he basically let on to believe that somehow the fact that maybe Peterson comes across as angry is a reason for people to discredit what he's saying, right? Because it couldn't possibly be that someone who shows anger is also maybe logical or capable of critical thinking or has anything valuable to say, right? Basically, people use this argument of he or she seems angry to paint the person in question as some kind of an emotional, out of control, idiot, basically, who has no capability of objectivity and is totally at the mercy of his or her emotions, or their emotions, right? Which is complete lunacy, right? A person is perfectly capable of having human emotions and then still capable of thinking objectively about a situation. You could be in a situation that makes you very angry and still have self-control and be aware of the fact that, okay, I'm being angry right now. I'm going to choose to control myself about it because this is not a good time to act, right? Self-control does not mean lack of emotions. That's what I'm trying to say. And anyway, the fact that he said that sounded very manipulative. And in fact, I would put these kinds of arguments in the category of narcissistic nitpicking, right? These commentaries like he or she seems angry, I don't know, they failed a basketball team in 5th grade, stuff like this. Basically, narcissistic nitpicking is a strategy that people use, narcissists specifically, or other dark triad personalities like psychopaths and sociopaths. They're basically tactics to attack someone's character based on, minor details that are not even particularly relevant, or sometimes not relevant at all. I could give you another very good example of narcissistic nitpicking when it comes to how Donald Trump was treated during the time when he was president and when he was running for elections. But again, I won't diverse into that politics or anything like that. And I'm not necessarily like a fan of his because, again, not saying the guy is perfect, but the level of BS that he was subjected to during the time when he was a president was a clear example of narcissistic nitpicking. The way that every little crap that he didn't do, the way that his wife was looking during a press conference, what she was wearing, how she was looking. Every little shit was being, turned over on a regular basis, overanalyzed, blasted, and exaggerated in the media. That is a primary example of narcissistic nitpicking, basically. And yeah, and I say this as someone who is impartial. Again, please don't give me these like political comments in the comment section, because I don't live in the US, never have, and so I don't have a dog in the fight or anything. I'm just telling you what happened to him was not normal, as a innocent bystander who was just watching stuff unravel on the internet. All right. Another thing that I will say is this is again another main idea that I wanted to say with respect to this attack on anger specifically, right? Is that it goes hand in hand with the agenda of a lot of the people in power today to create totalitarianism, right? You see a push for totalitarianism, and I have talked about this again in the other video where I talked about the Age of Aquarius. How you see a rise in totalitarianism of all forms, whether you want to call it communism, whether you call it, I don't know, Islamism or whatever it is. These are all forms of totalitarianism, right? And totalitarianism is basically mass scale narcissistic abuse when you break it down. I actually thought about doing a separate video entirely on this, but just to give you some examples of what I mean by this, if you think about it, what is narcissism actually? Narcissistic abuse is basically animal level control, right? So it's basically people living like animals, being controlled, wanting to control through fear, because they themselves are afraid, right? So narcissists, if you read about them and how they develop, there were people who went through massive forms of abuse most of the times, and at the same time were being glorified in other ways. So in any case, they were raised in very unhealthy environments where they get this message that life is about, dog eat dog world. It's all about who proves to be the biggest and the toughest, and whatever, that's going to be the person who survives, who gets the power, who gets the glory, who gets their needs met, and everyone else is basically a complete failure, right? So that's narcissism in a nutshell, right? It's a very simplistic view, but a lot of it stems from this way, the way that they view the world, which is that everything is a fierce competition, and you have to basically destroy enemies by any means necessary. And because they think like this, they constantly seek to put themselves in a position of power, social status, wealth, whatever it is that they are going for, that is going to make them feel powerful, strong, almighty, and basically feed the negative voices in their head that make them feel shame and unworthiness deep down, right? So totalitarianism is very much to the liking of a narcissist, right? Because in a totalitarian regime, I speak as someone who comes from a former communist country, I know how it plays out. It always ends up in becoming this very hierarchical, narcissistic society where everything is based on contacts and positions of power. It's basically, what communism always inevitably reverts to is this kind of mafia run state, right? Where you have, I don't know if you've ever watched movies about, the mob, and they have this concept of like the made man, or usually it's the main man. I don't think there were very many women who were in the mob. In any case, so they have this concept of the made man, which was basically once a person reaches a position of power, they are untouchable, right? That's basically how all corruption starts. Because in reality, in order to maintain a healthy society, nobody should be above judgment or above justice, right? Except what happens in totalitarian states is that once a person reaches a position of power, they have the right connections, they're kissing the right asses, they're almost untouchable. So they can go around abusing people, they can go around doing whatever the hell they want, increasing their power and their wealth, while most of the population is starving, because there's nobody there to call them to justice, right? This is why there's always mass corruption and everything goes to shit in a communist state. This is, again, a very oversimplified view of it, because there's a lot to be said here about all the ramifications of totalitarianism within a communist state, but I won't dwell on that. So the bottom line is that the attack on anger, the attack on emotion is going hand in hand with the narcissist of the world, right? This is actually to their liking because it makes it easier to control people, to bully people, to, first of all, to isolate people, right? And you see evidence of this like on a regular basis where you see TV shows and whatnot. I mean, I was just thinking about this. Some of the most popular YouTubers, I mean, just look at some of the most popular YouTubers in today's world. I mean, from the guy who is like behind Diary of a CEO, to including Teal Swan, to there's this other guy who's like British who has like kind of facial hair. I don't know what his name is. Anyway, I should probably do some research. But if you look at some of the most popular YouTubers, both men and women or anything in between, they all are perfecting to a large extent the lack of emotion, right? It's almost when you look at them speaking. Another one is, what's his name? Gosh, I forgot his name. Anyway, there's this one guy who speaks against narcissistic abuse, and there's Sam Vaknin, actually, who talked about him. Richard Grannon, right? Richard Grannon. So he has this, he has a huge following as well where he talks about narcissistic abuse. And he ironically also has a similar energy about him that is kind of robotic, where he doesn't show a lot of emotions. And again, I'm not trying to say that it's normal for people to I'm not talking about people who don't cry in public. That's not what I mean by lack of emotions. I'm talking about people who perfect the way that they talk, the way they walk, the way they present themselves to such an extent that not even their face really fully moves when they're talking, right? This is what I'm talking about. Like it's almost like if you look at most of these popular YouTubers, like if you look at their faces, it's like the angle from around, like the area from around the edge of the mouth and the edge of the eye is almost not moving. It's like when they're talking, they're only using their lower jaw, like they're barely showing any kind of emotion, like a smile or some kind of like facial mimicry. Now, I know some of you are probably going to think, well, maybe it's because they all got Botox or something. But no, I don't think so. I don't think it's about Botox, really. I think it's about people perfecting acting like a robot because we have somehow glorified this lack of emotion crap, as some kind of a badge of superiority. And that's what I wanted to say, is that this goes hand in hand with the narcissist of the world because it becomes easier for them to enforce totalitarianism and control and power against the general population. Just let me give you an example. What do I mean by this? Let's say attacking anger. Well, it's very easy to, let's say, create a toxic work culture, and I have seen this with my own eyes, where bosses abuse the, coworkers to death. Because as long as the coworker, as soon as the coworker is going to make some kind of an accusation, and unless they are fortunate enough to have some kind of very solid recorded evidence, which is rare to get, right? If they make any kind of accusation, they're the ones who are going to be the first ones to be held under scrutiny. Like, maybe they are angry, maybe they are unhinged, right? So let me give you another example, right? Let's say you're a woman who goes through harassment of a sexual nature, and you go through it at one job and you decide you don't have enough evidence to attack this person and you don't feel comfortable accusing them to HR or whatever. So in order to avoid getting harassed continuously, you choose to leave for another company, right? If you go to another company, you might deal with the same crap because a lot of these narcissists are used to relying on the fact that nobody's going to complain for fear of being seen as a problem, unhinged, or unable to adapt, quote unquote, to the corporate environment, which would actually make them look like, a problem and even impede their ability to make a livelihood when you think about it. Right? This is just one example. Let me give you another example, right? Let's say you are the victim of a crime. Like, let's say someone bumps into you and I don't know, let's say someone punches you. Let me up the ante a little bit. Someone punches you in broad daylight and they immediately fall to the ground and they start crying. And let's say people didn't see the part about you getting punched. They just see you getting angry and threatening this person, maybe with a lawsuit or something. Who do you think that people are going to believe? That, you know, the person who acts like a perfect victim has actually done anything wrong, or that you're the one who has a problem? Because what people are going to see is that you're the one who is acting angry and threatening, and this other person is very good at playing the victim, right? So what I'm trying to say is that these kinds of environments that demonize emotions, especially negative emotions like anger, are perfect breeding grounds for narcissism and all kinds of abuses of power, right? And this is just one aspect of it. Let's not also get into the fact that, you know, the reason why I think society discourages anger, and by society I mean, again, people in positions of power, is because anger is a very dangerous emotion, right? Let's not forget that all revolutions have started with people getting pissed about the status quo and starting to question things, right? Now, if you are someone who wanted to create a total control environment, a totally controlled environment, you wouldn't want that, right? You wouldn't want people who are angry. So it would be very convenient to create a system that completely demonizes even the slightest show of anger, even when it is perfectly justified, like because the person was unfairly treated, right? Which is to some extent always the source of anger, the fact that a person feels unfairly treated. But, you know, let's not get into that. The bottom line is ultimately not just that it is a breeding ground of injustices and paving the path for totalitarianism, but it is also ultimately leading to mental health issues, which is the final point that I wanted to get to. Well, not the final of this whole idea between the Age of Aquarius and the demonizing of emotions, right? So on the other hand, the final idea that I wanted to have within this chapter is that we see an epidemic of mental health, especially depression, right? Speaking as someone who has been very, very depressed in my life, I know what I'm talking about. I remember when I was around 20 and I was severely depressed, like really deeply depressed. And that's when I really started. I mean, I only started to slowly get out of it when I started to acknowledge that underneath my depression, I was actually a very angry person. And really, ultimately, I came across these articles on psychology that said that the main root of depression is suppressed anger, right? So again, if you live in a society that demonizes anger, automatically when people have real grievances, instead of them allowing themselves, at the very least, allowing themselves to be angry and to start conflicts, maybe if necessary, or at least debates, and to, you know, fight for change, if you automatically tell them that it's a problem with them, that if they are angry, they need to just do some breathing exercises and, you know, I don't know, go outside and smell the roses. And if not, that there's something wrong with them, that they need to go to therapy and take Xanax or whatever the fuck else, then of course you are paving the path for mental health, right, issues. Because it's like you're telling a person who is going through a natural human emotion to keep suppressing that emotion, which is inevitably going to lead to depression. And then when people are depressed, again, they are easier to control. And in fact, they might even serve big pharma, right? I mean, it's easier to have a mass of semi-depressed, semi-functional people that are still not, you know, self-destructive enough to off themselves. So they're still going to show up for work and push the wheels so that people can continue to exploit them. But then they're also too effed up and addicted to Xanax for them to actually start a revolution. That's very convenient for people who want to control the masses and create totalitarianism, isn't it? Right? And this is just one thing that I wanted to say, not to feed into any kind of conspiracy theories. I'm just throwing ideas over there, right? I'm not saying that I'm some kind of a big conspiracist, but I'm just looking at it as a long strain of what I see happening in society among people who are in positions of power is just total ignorance. Ignorance mixed with greediness, mixed with corruption, mixed with, complete selfishness and a long string of bad decisions, especially when it comes to people who are in a lower position than they are. But I won't get into that. So bottom line is that, also, and I remember I saw Teal Swan talking about this, and this is one point that I actually agree with when it comes to the stuff that she says that I don't always agree with. But she actually said this, that if you are depressed, literally the first step out of depression is to allow yourself to be angry. And that was exactly what happened for me. Like, if I was actually in a way lucky, even though I didn't realize it, that I lived in a country that was not very pill happy. Like, I think if I would have been 20 years old in the US and being, at the level of depression that I was, I probably would have been medicated. Instead, what I did was I really tortured myself to try to figure out why I was so deeply unhappy and why I was so deeply, I don't want to say unhappy, because I know that's an understatement compared to the, deep grief and misery and actual physical pain that you feel when you are heavily depressed. Right? So, but going through that process of acknowledging that, hey, I am angry, and then starting from there, realizing what it is that you are angry about and doing something about changing it. Because if you don't do anything about changing it, the root cause is always going to be there. You're just postponing depression by taking, a bunch of medications, for instance, right? So this is just one thing that I wanted to say. But aside from anger, actually, so this is one aspect that leads to mental illness, right? But another aspect that specifically leads to loneliness, which then also feeds into depression, because let's not forget, loneliness is one of the main causes for all kinds of mental illnesses, not just mental illnesses, but ultimately also decrease in actual immune systems, which leads to physical illness, etc., right? So another thing that really feeds into loneliness is the normalization of grayrocking. This is one of the things that I wanted to say. I actually this is something that dawned on me when I had a friend who recommended me this book that was called, I think it was called something about how to stop being a victim or something, or how to stop thinking like a victim. And I remember feeling a little bit offended that she would recommend this. I won't even get into this whole topic about, feeling like a victim versus actually being a victim of something, how oftentimes they're being mistaken and whatever, people are being gaslit into drop accusations because they're told stop playing the victim when they have real grievances, right? Anyway, I won't get into that. But anyway, I had this friend who recommended me this book, and I started to listen to the audiobook. And there was this one part that really pissed me off, and you see this again being preached and normalized all the time in the world today. And it's basically something along the lines of grayrocking. It's just that he didn't call it like that. I don't remember what the author of this book was, but he didn't literally call it grayrocking. He just basically said the same thing that Dr. Ramani said when she described grayrocking, which was that you shouldn't allow people, this is literally one thing that he said, that you shouldn't allow people to know when they have hurt you, because then they will continue to hurt you. And to me, this is like, first of all, time out here. If you are around people like this, who, like, as soon as you show a vulnerability or something, they will continue to rub it in your face, these people are narcissists at the very least, if they're not something worse than that, right? I'm sorry to break this to you. Like, this kind of thing, this kind of behavior maybe is acceptable when you're 5 years old and in kindergarten and have no emotional maturity. But once you become an adult, doing stuff like this is just not healthy, right? In fact, it's one of the easiest way to see whether a person truly cares about you or not, right? If you show, like, let's say if you share some kind of an experience that really bothered you, whether it's something small, especially if it's something big, right? Like, let's say, I don't know, I can't think of any examples, but think about something really serious. I don't know, like you have some serious hurt feelings about the fact that, I don't know, one of your parents used to abuse you. And now you tell someone whom you consider to be a friend that you have this kind of vulnerability, and every single time they get the chance, they rub it in your face, or they show, let's say they say, oh, so-and-so was also abused by their mother and is now in prison, or worse, like laughing about it, like, oh, what's the big deal about being abused by your mother, or, laughing about it like it's, making you feel like, let's say you are weak for even complaining about it. Stuff like this is narcissistic abuse. End of discussion. And in fact, I would actually, this is something, a kind of a strategy that I personally have devised in my personal life, is I will tell people little things that bother me that don't even actually bother me, right? I might mention something like, let's say I'll say something like, I hate, I don't know, spiders, let's say, which I don't personally. I don't care. I'm not afraid of spiders, right? But let's say I would tell someone that I'm absolutely terrified of spiders. And if it's kind of a test, right? If, let's say, I'm hanging out with someone and I want to see if this person is a good friend or a potential good date, romantic partner, whatever, this is what I would do. I would tell them I effing can't stand spiders. And if this person starts to make jokes about it, arachnophobia, or worst of all, is gonna, I don't know, bring toy spiders in front of me to annoy me, this is a test that shows this person is a narcissist. I'm sorry. And again, at the worst, like, let me put it to you like the least problematic explanation is that they're emotionally mature. But even if they are that emotionally mature, I would say it goes beyond emotional immaturity. People who repeatedly use your vulnerabilities against you are narcissists. They're not emotionally immature. It's not just that they are immature, it's that they get off on rubbing it in your face about, making you feel uncomfortable, basically, and hurting your feelings. It's because it gives them a sense of control and sense of power. That's what it is. It's not about just fooling around or, trying to be funny. Don't make any mistakes about it. So the bottom line is, what I'm trying to say is that this grayrocking BS, is also leading to the loneliness epidemic. We live in a world that tells people that they should never show emotions, right? You should never show anger, sadness, loneliness. You shouldn't ever, if you go through life grayrocking, let me put it to you like this. What do you think the conclusion of that is going to be, if not complete loneliness, right? If you go through life never letting people know what bothers you, what you like, what you don't like, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, that basically means that the people who are around you don't even know you, right? If there are people around you to begin with. So even if you end up in a relationship and if you constantly have to maintain a facade and those people don't even know you, you cannot build intimacy like this, right? You have no intimacy in your life if you're constantly grayrocking and pretending to not care about anything. This is what I'm trying to say. So it's not a surprise that we live in one of the most, loneliness-stricken times of history, when people are constantly being told to police every little human reaction and emotion, and basically that everything is somehow a sign of mental or emotional instability. Right? Even when they're perfectly justified to feel angry or sad or whatever it is, whatever other human emotion, frustrated, whatever, etc., etc. So the bottom line is that I think people should wake up. This is my advice. And in any case, it's like, learn to think for yourselves, because remember, there are two sides of Aquarius. There are two rulers of Aquarius. There is Saturn, which is about totalitarianism, control, ruling based on fear. And then there is Rahu, which is about, fuck it all, basically. Rahu is about thinking for yourself. And it's about not allowing, actually, the bullshit of other people to cloud your judgment, or don't allow other people to, pull the wool over your eyes, and manipulate your judgment and your thinking and your way of doing things. Figuring out what actually makes you happy and what the truth is at the end of the day. The really positive expression of Rahu, that is, the one that doesn't care about deception, is about getting to the bottom of things. It is about basically thinking for yourself and becoming truly independent, and independence does not mean isolation. Independence means that you know who you are, you know what you stand for, and you think for yourself. Ultimately, you question everything, because Rahu is the question to the status quo, right? Rahu is the energy that never stops asking why. Why is this like this? Why are you telling me this? Why is this like this? Why are they presenting this? Why are they showing this on the media 5 times a day? Could there be a reason? This is basically the Rahu energy, right? Thinking for yourself. and being rational at the end of the day. So basically, these are the main things that I wanted to say, right? I would have other things that I would like to say about this topic, and maybe I will expand in future videos, because I have a lot of things that I want to say, especially when it comes to like human emotions, anger, demonizations of emotions, and again, the link to mental health. I would like to expand on all of these topics, so maybe I'm going to make more videos in the future. But for now, these are the main things that I wanted. I also wanted to expand the topic of how totalitarianism is basically mass-scale narcissistic abuse, and how chauvinism is also a form of mass-scale narcissistic abuse directed at women, and basically how to not fall for these BS tactics at the end of the day. And yeah, but this is what I wanted to say so far. And again, if you have enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, click on the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you want to find out more information about how to get a private astrology or tarot reading from me, check out the video description or the intro part of this video. Also, consider checking out the intro video for information about memberships, like what memberships entail, you know, different perks per each level of membership, if you're curious about that. And last but not least, I also have a tarot channel, and I will be linking it in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. So if you're interested in tarot, go ahead and check it out. Maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you at my next video.